Alright, it's got to be around here somewhere. I don't know how anybody finds anything here. Maybe it's in here. Alright. Well, I don't know. No. That's not it. Maybe. No. Tony gave me that. That's not it either. Wait a minute. It belonged to Han Solo. That's not even the right. What in the world? Maybe they're. Oh. No. Those aren't it either. Had to put those things away. Maybe it's. I don't know. Well. No. As awesome as that is, I'm glad I found that. Been kind of wondering where that's been. That's not it either. Ah, ha! Here it is. Found it. I found Mjolnir. Mjolnir is the name of Thor's hammer. Thor had to be worthy enough to pick up Mjolnir. And as I was looking at our chapel talk this week, it started me to think about one of my favorite superheroes, Thor. I hope you're having a great week. I hope your short week last week with Labor Day was great, and I hope that we're back on track. Again, we want you to all stay safe, and we want to make sure that everybody is doing what they are supposed to do to be socially distant and to make sure that we're all staying healthy. So how does Thor work into our chapel talk this week? Well, to answer that, we're going to have to go to Genesis chapter 28. We're going to learn about a guy named Jacob. Now, you might know Jacob pretty well. Jacob is the son of Isaac. Isaac was the son of promise from Abraham. But if we remember from last week, in talking about our trades and what we would trade for, one of the things that I can't help but think is at the beginning of our story, Jacob wasn't really like Thor as much as maybe Loki. So if you follow superhero stories in the movies, Loki is a trickster. And if we look at Jacob in his early life, he really wasn't the hero that we needed. The same is true with Thor. When we first meet Thor, he's not wielding the hammer yet. He is a experienced warrior. He is arrogant. He's cocky. He's full of his own vibrato. He is so caught up in Thor that it doesn't really take time to think of anything else or anybody else. When we look at Jacob in his early life, he isn't the hero that we think of later on. He tricks his brother. He does these things and he hides behind his mother. He lies to his father. He's really not the kind of person that we expect to be, or we expect him to be. But then something happens. And in Genesis 28, we read about that. See, what happens is Jacob sends him on a journey. Sends him on a journey to find his mother's family. And in doing so, he's going to eventually find his wife. But Jacob had never done anything like this before. Jacob had never really done anything adult up until that point. Everything he had done in the same home and house as his mother and his father. He pretty much was taken care of by his mom up until this point. And now Jacob was telling him to go off on his own. His tricks weren't going to do any good out there. In fact, his tricks might have gotten him in more trouble if he had used them. But as Jacob is going out, he receives a dream. And in that dream, God essentially says, I have big plans for you. Jacob didn't see these big plans. He thought the only way to get ahead was to trick people, trick his brother. But he didn't see the greatness in himself that God saw in him. You see, we find out later on that Jacob is going to have 12 sons. They're going to become the 12 tribes of Israel. He's going to wrestle with God, and he is going to have a life that is full. But at this moment, as he's about to step out on this journey to a place called Haran, he doesn't see what God sees in him. The beginning of Thor saw what he wanted to see in himself, but he didn't see what he needed to see. Sometimes you have to go through scary moments. You have to experience things you've never experienced before to realize how great God has made you. And in so many ways, we have to understand that God sees things in us that sometimes we can't even see for ourselves. There's a moment in Avengers Endgame where Thor goes back in time. Thor has gone through a really, really rough patch. He's put on a lot of weight because he's been very depressed. He's made some bad choices. He's lost some friends. And he's just in a really dark place. And there's a scene with his mother. He goes back in time and he sees her again. And just as he's leaving, he does what Thor has done so many times before. He holds out his hand. If you've ever seen the movies, you know what'll happen. He holds out that hand, and Mjolnir, without fail, is brought to his grip. You see, in that moment, Thor was wondering. He was questioning, even after all of these things, even after all of this, am I worthy? Can I still hold greatness? Because even he didn't believe in himself. But the moment that hammer touched his hand, a smile came across his face. He realized even though he had made bad choices, even though he had been in a dark place, even though he was struggling with his own depression, he was still worthy to yield or to wield Mjolnir, to wield the hammer that his father had given him. Jacob is about to go on a trip that would last him the rest of his life. And he had doubts. He questioned a lot. Am I ready for this? I've never really left mom and dad's house. I've really never done anything on my own. My mom has helped me with everything. My brother is going to be so angry with me. I'm tricking him all the time. Can I really do this? And in his dream, God tells him, you may not see it, but I see greatness in you. Not only do I see greatness in you, you're going to be the father of nations. You'll have 12 sons, and in those 12 sons, you'll have the 12 tribes of Israel. And those will be God's people. Sometimes when we are up against a challenge, or we're unsure of ourselves, remember that while you may not be able to see all the greatness that God has put in you, God sees that. Sometimes all we have to do is just hold out our hand and trust. And God will take our hand. He may lead us in places we never expected. But God did not make you mediocre. He didn't make you so-so. God sees greatness in you. Sometimes it just takes challenges for us to see that greatness in ourselves. Jacob was about to embark on a long adventure that would have a lot of good moments and a lot of very bad moments. A lot of moments of happiness and moments of great sadness. But he didn't trust in himself. He trusted in God, and that when God said, there's greatness in you, he believed that. There's greatness in each and every one of you. You may not always feel it. You may not always believe it. You may come from a past very similar to Jacob, where you've tricked people, or you've lied, or you've made mistakes, or you've not been the best person that you can be. But guess what? That doesn't mean you can't be great. It doesn't mean that there is not opportunity for God to work in you. Just like a man in the New Testament named Saul, who was actually opposed to God or opposed to the Christians, and he was fighting everything that Christianity was. Nobody would have thought that God would have used him as a vessel. But God knew better. And Saul put his trust in him, and he became Paul. Sometimes all we have to do is reach out our hand and ask God to take it and lead us in the way that He can, down the paths that He can. Now, it's a little scary to put all of that trust there. But we are all destined for greatness. We can do great things, not because of what we are, and not because of what I'm able to do, but you and I can be great because of God and what God can do in our lives. You see, all of the heroes in the Bible, they had to start somewhere. They had to start on a journey. And they all had their mistakes, and they all had their faults. With the exception of Jesus. All of the heroes that we read about make mistakes. But that doesn't mean that they cannot do great things. And it doesn't mean that you and I can't do great things if we put our trust in God. You're not a little worthy of God's love. You are 100% worthy. You might make mistakes. That's going to happen. We all seem to make mistakes. But what I can tell you is this. Even after you make those mistakes, you can still be great for God. I wonder what I can do with something like this. Or this. I don't know. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope if you have a birthday this week, you have a wonderful birthday. Stay doing what you're doing. Y'all are doing a great job with your social distancing, with your washing of your hands, with your staying out of people's bubbles. Y'all are doing a great job of that, and I'm very proud of you. I see greatness in our students at Jackson Christian. Even when you doubt your own, trust in God's greatness. Trust in God's ability to do wonderful things with imperfect people, with people that make mistakes all the time. You see, people let us down. People make mistakes. Even some of our heroes make mistakes and let us down. But God will always keep His promise. God will always do what He tells us He can do. And God can see the greatness in us when we can't even see it in ourselves. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. I'm going to go see if I can find that spider kid and go hang out. Hope you guys have a good week. Talk to you soon.